We're incredibly grateful for your support. Before we begin today's tale, tell us, which city or country are you joining us from? We love connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Clayton Berger's fingers danced across his keyboard, the gentle tapping echoing through his corner office at Berger Architectural Designs. The clock on his desktop showed 7:45 p.m. Their anniversary dinner had started 45 minutes ago. His phone buzzed for the third time, Monica's name flashing across the screen. He grabbed the phone, his other hand still making adjustments to the community center's solar panel configuration. "Monica, I'm so sorry. Let me guess." Monica's voice carried a practiced patience. "The community center designs?" Clayton minimized the AutoCAD window, revealing his desktop wallpaper. Their family photo from Sarah's last birthday. The sustainability calculations aren't adding up. I promised the committee a net zero building, and I'm not delivering that by cutting corners. Of course not. Clayton Berger never cuts corners. There was something in her tone, something he missed entirely as he toggled back to his designs. "I suppose I'll see you at home? I'll make it up to you this weekend. Promise. Give Sarah a kiss for me if she's still awake. She's at her art studio, working on competition pieces." Monica paused. "Wesley's helping her with some techniques." Clayton smiled, warmth spreading through his chest. "I'm glad they bond over art. Who would have thought my contractor brother would have such a creative streak?" He saved his work, adding, "Tell him thanks for looking after her. Always looking after your family, isn't he?" Monica's voice softened. "I should go. Don't work too late." The line went dead before Clayton could respond. He turned back to his designs, missing how his wife's hand had trembled as she ended the call. Across town, in room 742 of the Westbrook Hotel, Monica's phone clattered onto the nightstand. She turned to face Wesley, who lay watching her with those striking blue eyes, the same eyes that had caught her attention at Clayton's office Christmas party 15 years ago, the same eyes their daughter had inherited. "He's not coming home yet," she said, trailing her fingers down Wesley's chest. "Still working on his precious community center." Wesley caught her hand, pressing it against his heart. "You know what he's like. The great Clayton Berger, always putting his work first." There was bitterness in his voice, old and familiar. Dad's golden boy, following in his footsteps. "Not now, Wes." Monica straddled him, her dark hair falling like a curtain around their faces. "We have other ways to spend this time." Later, as they dressed, Wesley watched Monica apply her lipstick in the hotel mirror. "Sarah's art competition is next week. She wants me there." "Of course she does." Monica met his eyes in the reflection. "Her father should be there to support her." "I'm not her father, Monica." "Not really." Wesley yanked his tie straight with more force than necessary. "Clayton is. The same way he got everything else. The company, Dad's approval, you." Monica turned, cupping his face in her hands. "You have me now. Have had me for years." "And Sarah? She may have Clayton's name, but she has your talent, your eyes, your spirit. Isn't that enough?" Wesley pulled away, gathering his tools, the props for his supposed repair work at the house. "Is it enough for you?" Before Monica could answer, her phone chimed. "A text from Sarah, Mom. Mr. Chin says my piece might win first place. Dad's going to be so proud." Monica's chest tightened as she showed Wesley the message. His jaw clenched, but he forced a smile. "She's talented. Gets that from both of us, I suppose." "Wesley, I should go. Got another repair job scheduled for tomorrow. Wouldn't want to disappoint the family." He kissed her roughly, then headed for the door. "Same time next week?" Monica nodded, watching him leave. She waited 10 minutes, fixing her makeup and hair, ensuring no trace of Wesley remained. Then she too left, driving home to the life she'd crafted so carefully, where she played the role of devoted wife and mother in Clayton's perfect family. The next afternoon, Sarah sat in her school's art studio, adding final touches to her competition piece. A complex mixed-media work exploring themes of identity and belonging. She didn't look up when the door opened, recognizing Wesley's footsteps. "That's coming along beautifully," he said, setting down his toolbox. "The way you've layered the textures. Reminds me of my first major piece." Sarah beamed at him. "Mom says you're the one who got me interested in art, always bringing over your sketchbooks when you'd come to fix things around the house." Wesley's hand trembled slightly as he reached for a brush, demonstrating a technique. Art's in your blood, kid. Some things just pass down naturally. Like my eyes? Sarah touched her face self-consciously. Mom says they're just like yours. Genetic coincidence, right? Since Uncle Clay and Mom both have brown eyes. Wesley's brush clattered to the floor. He retrieved it quickly, forcing a laugh. Genetics are weird like that. Look at your mom's sister. Red hair in a family of brunettes. They worked in companionable silence until Sarah's phone buzzed. Dad's coming to the competition. He just confirmed. Wesley's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. Of course he is. Clayton wouldn't miss it. Will you be there too? Maybe you could do some touch-up work on the gallery walls that day. Sarah's eyes, his eyes, pleaded with him. Wouldn't miss it. Wesley packed up his tools, each movement deliberate and controlled. Your dad's not the only one who keeps his promises. As Wesley left the school, Mrs. Patterson from next door was collecting her granddaughter. The elderly woman's eyes narrowed as she watched him load his truck. Wesley nodded politely, but her frown deepened. She'd been watching him come and go for years, her concern growing with each visit. The day of the competition arrived with all the fanfare the local art community could muster. Clayton arrived early, camera in hand, pride radiating from every pore as Sarah's piece was unveiled. Monica stood beside him, the perfect supporting mother, while Wesley worked quietly in the background, adjusting lighting and touching up paint. Ladies and gentlemen, the gallery owner announced, first place in this year's Young Artist competition goes to Sarah Berger. Clayton wrapped Sarah in a bear hug, lifting her off her feet. That's my girl. I knew you could do it. Over Clayton's shoulder, Sarah's eyes met Wesley's. He gave her a subtle thumbs up, his true feelings hidden behind a handyman smile. Monica watched the exchange, her hand clutching her champagne glass too tightly. Later, as the crowd thinned, Clayton gathered them all for photos. Family picture time. Wesley, get in here. Your family too. Wesley moved to stand behind Sarah, his hands resting lightly on her shoulders. Monica positioned herself between them and Clayton, her smile never wavering as the camera flashed. Perfect, Clayton declared, reviewing the photo. The perfect family moment. Monica and Wesley exchanged glances, their perfect lie captured digitally forever, while Sarah leaned back slightly into her uncle's steady hands, unaware she was completing a triangle of deception that had begun long before she was born. The box of old photographs sat accusingly on Clayton's desk, disturbed from its dusty corner during office renovations. He'd meant to organize them quickly, but one image caught his eye, Sarah's first birthday. Monica held their daughter while Wesley stood nearby, his expression unreadable. Clayton frowned, flipping through more photos. Wesley appeared in an unusual number of them. Sarah's first steps, Christmas mornings, random Sunday afternoons. Strange, Clayton muttered, setting aside another photo of Wesley helping Sarah blow out candles. When did he become such a fixture in our lives? A knock interrupted his thoughts. His business partner, Michael Chun, entered with a stack of papers. Quarterly reports, he said, then noticed the photos. Trip down memory lane? Something like that. Clayton held up a picture of Sarah's 5th birthday. Did you know Wesley was at every one of Sarah's birthdays? I never realized how present he's been. Michael shifted uncomfortably. Speaking of presents, Clayton, there's something he stopped reconsidering. Never mind. It's not my place. What is it? It's probably nothing. Michael straightened some papers unnecessarily. Just last month when Monica said she was at that gallery conference in Chicago, I could have sworn I saw her at the Westbrook Hotel here in town. But I must have been mistaken. Clayton's phone buzzed. A text from Monica. Wesley's coming by to fix the kitchen sink. Don't worry about rushing home. Everything okay? Michael asked, noting Clayton's expression. Fine. Clayton tucked the photos away. Just how's maintenance issues? At home, Monica rushed through the kitchen, gathering things. Wesley's jacket, left from his last visit, needed hiding. She'd grown careless lately, leaving traces of their affair where previously she'd been meticulous about erasing all evidence. The doorbell rang. Monica checked her reflection, smoothed her hair, and opened the door to find not Wesley, but Sarah. Mom, You won't believe what happened in biology today. Sarah burst in, dropping her backpack. We're doing blood types, and something weird came up. Mine doesn't match what it should be, given yours and Dad's types. Monica's hand gripped the doorframe. What do you mean? Well, you're type A and Dad's type B, right? So I should be either A, B, or AB. But I'm type O. Ms. Rodriguez says that's impossible unless. Your teacher is mistaken, Monica cut in sharply. The hospital must have recorded it wrong when you were born. I'll call them tomorrow. But, Sarah, please. I have a headache. Monica massaged her temples. Wesley will be here soon to fix the sink. Why don't you show him your latest sketches? Sarah's face brightened at Wesley's name, then fell slightly. He's been here a lot lately. Is everything okay with the house? Old houses need constant maintenance, sweetheart. We're lucky to have Wesley. As if summoned by his name, Wesley's truck pulled into the driveway. Sarah ran to greet him, missing how her mother's hands shook as she quickly hid his jacket in the coat closet. Wesley hugged Sarah, holding on a moment too long. Hey kiddo, how's the art world's rising star? Confused about biology, Sarah replied. Did you know about blood types? Sarah, Monica called from the doorway. Homework, now. Once Sarah disappeared upstairs, Wesley approached Monica. We need to talk. The sink first, in case Clayton comes home. To hell with the sink. Wesley grabbed her arm. I can't do this anymore, Monica. The sneaking around. Watching my daughter call another man Dad, pretending I'm just a helpful uncle who appears whenever something needs fixing. Lower your voice. Monica hissed, pulling him into the kitchen. What do you want me to do? Tell Clayton? Destroy everything. Maybe it needs destroying. Wesley ran a hand through his hair. Sarah's asking questions about blood types. She's not stupid, Monica. Soon she'll figure it out. No, she won't. Not unless you tell her. Monica's voice turned hard. Remember our agreement. This arrangement works for everyone. Works for everyone? Wesley laughed bitterly. Works for you, you mean? You get everything. The perfect husband, the perfect house, the perfect life. I get to watch my brother raise my daughter and screw his wife on the side. Neither of them noticed Mrs. Patterson at her kitchen window next door, watching with growing concern. She'd seen too much over the years, the lingering touches, the long visits when Clayton worked late, the way Wesley looked at Sarah. She needed to warn Clayton before. A sharp pain shot through her left side. The last thing Mrs. Patterson saw before collapsing was Wesley storming out to his truck, leaving the sink unfixed and Monica standing alone in her perfect kitchen, surrounded by hairline cracks in her perfect lie. Later that evening, Monica sat at her computer, carefully transferring small amounts from the family account to her private one. Just in case, Wesley's outburst had rattled her more than she cared to admit. Clayton's arrival interrupted her thoughts. I'm home. Sarah? Monica? Monica quickly closed the banking window. In here, darling. Clayton entered, looking tired. Wesley's truck was here earlier. The sink needed fixing. Monica kissed his cheek. He couldn't finish. Some emergency with another client. He'll come back tomorrow. He's here a lot lately. We have an old house. Clayton nodded absently, loosening his tie. I found some old photos today. Made me realize how much Wesley's been part of our lives. We're lucky to have such a devoted brother, aren't we? Monica's smile never wavered. Very lucky. Sarah adores him. Speaking of Sarah, Clayton sat heavily. I've been thinking about her eyes lately. Isn't it strange? Both of us have brown eyes, yet she has these striking blue ones. Just like Wesley's. Monica's heart stopped for a moment, but years of deception served her well. Genetics are funny that way. Remember what the doctor said about recessive genes, right? Clayton smiled, but something felt off about it. Of course. How was your gallery conference in Chicago last month? Productive. Monica turned away, organizing papers unnecessarily. Made some good contacts. Fine. Michael thought he saw you at the Westbrook Hotel that week. Monica's hand stilled. Michael was mistaken. That's what I told him. Clayton stood. I should check on Sarah. Oh, and Monica? Happy anniversary. Sorry about missing dinner last week. As Clayton climbed the stairs, Monica's composed facade cracked slightly. She pulled out her phone, typing quickly to Wesley. We need to be more careful. Clayton's asking questions. Wesley's response came immediately. Then let's give him answers. I'm tired of hiding. Monica deleted both messages, her hands trembling. Upstairs, she could hear Clayton and Sarah laughing about something. Her perfect life balanced on a knife's edge, and she couldn't tell if it was about to fall. The canceled meeting in Boston had been a blessing in disguise. Clayton's flight landed 4 hours earlier than expected, giving him time to surprise Monica with the anniversary dinner he'd promised to make up. He pulled into their driveway at dusk, noting Wesley's truck parked on the street. Another repair job, no doubt. Clayton collected his briefcase and the roses he'd bought at the airport. The house seemed quiet, no lights in the front rooms. He walked around back, heading for the garden entrance he often used when working late. Monica's voice drifted from behind the greenhouse, accompanied by a lower murmur he recognized as Wesley's. Clayton slowed his steps, not wanting to interrupt what was probably a discussion about house repairs. Then Monica's laugh cut through the evening air, a laugh he'd never heard before, rich with intimacy and mockery. God, he's such a pathetic fool, she was saying. Thinks you just come over to help with house repairs. If only he knew you've been keeping his bed warm for a decade. Clayton's hand tightened on the roses, thorns digging into his palm. Even better, Monica continued, his precious little princess? She has your DNA, not his. The roses fell silently onto the grass. Clayton stood perfectly still, years of professional discipline holding him together as his personal world imploded. We should tell him, Wesley's voice now, urgent and low. Sarah deserves to know her real father. And risk losing everything? No. Clayton's the perfect husband, successful, trusting, completely oblivious. Why rock the boat? Because I'm tired of watching my daughter call him dad. Lower your voice. Mrs. Patterson's already suspicious enough. Clayton backed away silently, his movements measured and controlled. Inside his home office, he sat at his desk, opened his laptop, and began to type. His hands didn't shake. His breathing remained steady. Years of managing high-stress projects had taught him how to function through crisis. First, he accessed their financial accounts. Joint checking, savings, investment portfolios. Everything they'd built together over 16 years of marriage. Next, he pulled up his international contacts list. A decade of designing buildings across Asia had left him with a network of trusted allies. He began composing emails, his architect's mind already drafting blueprints for a different kind of construction, the systematic deconstruction of his life. Behind him, through the office window, he could still hear them in the garden. Their voices had dropped to murmurs again, punctuated by occasional laughter. Each sound drove Clayton's fingers faster across the keyboard as he methodically executed the first phase of his plan. He accessed the firm's financial systems next. As majority shareholder, he had complete control. Every project, every contract, every asset would need to be accounted for. He created a detailed spreadsheet, his trained eye for detail catching every nuance, every possibility. His phone buzzed, a text from an international number he recognized. Good. Things were already in motion. He replied with a series of coded instructions, then turned to his personal documents. Passport, birth certificate, property deeds. Everything he'd need. The garden door slammed. Clayton heard Monica's heels on the kitchen tile, then Wesley's heavier footsteps. Their voices carried through the house. Same time next week? Wesley asked. Clayton has that charity dinner. I'll text you. You should come by the hotel earlier. I have something special planned. Their voices faded as they moved toward the front door. Clayton continued typing, each keystroke another brick in the foundation of his response to their betrayal. He heard the front door open and close, then Wesley's truck starting up. Monica's footsteps approached his office. Clayton minimized his windows, pulling up a community center design instead. Clayton, Monica's surprise seemed genuine. You're home early. What happened to your meeting? He turned, meeting her eyes, the eyes that had lied to him for a decade. Canceled. Thought I'd surprise you. His voice remained perfectly steady. Wesley here for repairs. Just checking the greenhouse ventilation. Monica smiled. That same smile he'd trusted for 16 years. Dinner? I can throw something together. Already eaten. Clayton turned back to his computer. Going to work late. Don't wait up. Always working. Monica's hand touched his shoulder. He forced himself not to flinch. Don't stay up too late. After she left, Clayton reopened his other windows. His phone buzzed again. Sarah this time. Night, Dad. Love you. Red heart. Clayton stared at the message, his composure cracking for the first time. His daughter. Not his daughter. His princess. Their lie. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. Then he began typing again, faster now. The plan was taking shape. Every detail would need to be perfect. One mistake, and they'd see him coming. He wouldn't give them that chance. Hours passed. Clayton heard Monica go to bed. Around midnight, his phone buzzed one final time. Confirmation from his contact in Singapore. Everything was ready. He leaned back in his chair, looking at the family photo on his desk. Monica, Sarah, himself, all smiling, all perfect, all lies. He placed the photo face down, then returned to his work. By dawn, Clayton Berger's escape plan was complete. In the garden, the roses he'd dropped lay forgotten, their petals scattered by the night breeze, much like the pieces of his shattered life. But unlike those fallen petals, Clayton had no intention of letting his future scatter to the wind. They had built their perfect lie at his expense. Now he would build something else, the perfect revenge. He saved his files, encrypted his plans, and cleared his browser history. In a few hours, Monica would wake up to what she thought would be another normal day in her perfect life. She had no idea that her decade of deception had just met its match in the methodical mind of the man she'd so gravely underestimated. Clayton stood straightening his tie. Time to set things in motion. They played their game for 10 years. Now it was his turn. The morning sun hadn't yet touched the windows of Clayton's office when he began executing his plan. His computer screen reflected a complex web of financial transactions, each carefully designed to be untraceable. Numbers shifted from account to account, disappearing into a maze of international transfers. Mr. Berger? His secretary's voice crackled through the intercom. Mr. Yamamoto from Singapore is on line 1. Clayton picked up the phone. Hiroshi, thank you for accommodating my timeline. Your wire transfers are proceeding as planned, Hiroshi replied. Though I must ask, are you certain about the discount on your company's shares? They're worth significantly more. Speed is worth more than money right now. Clayton's eyes fixed on his family photo. Has the paperwork been prepared as discussed? Yes. Your new identity awaits. But Clayton, as your friend. Thank you, Hiroshi. That will be all? Clayton ended the call and turned to his computer, initiating the final sequence of transfers. Across town, Monica woke to an empty house. Nothing seemed amiss at first. Clayton often left early for work. She made coffee, checked her phone, frowned at the lack of messages from both Clayton and Wesley. The silence felt different today, heavy with something she couldn't name. The doorbell rang at 9 a.m. A courier handed her a thick envelope and departed without a word. Monica's hands trembled as she opened it, legal papers spilling onto the kitchen counter. Divorce papers, asset transfer notifications, bank statements showing empty accounts. Her coffee cup shattered on the tile as she frantically dialed Wesley's number. He knows, she whispered when he answered. Clayton knows everything. Wesley arrived 15 minutes later to find Monica surrounded by papers, her carefully maintained composure shattered. He's taken everything, she said, voice hollow. Every account, every asset. Even my separate account is frozen. Wesley grabbed the papers, scanning them with increasing alarm. How did he? These are from banks I didn't even know we had accounts with. Your brother's not as pathetic as we thought. Monica laughed hysterically. All these years, we thought we were so clever. Mom? Sarah stood in the doorway, backpack half slung over her shoulder. What's going on? Why are you home? Uncle Wesley? Before either could answer, another car pulled into the driveway. Through the window, they watched Clayton's lawyer, Richard Chun, approach with another stack of documents. Mrs. Berger. Richard's voice was professionally detached as he entered the kitchen. Mr. Barnes. Miss Berger. I have some documents requiring your immediate attention. Sarah looked between the adults, confusion mounting. Where's Dad? Richard placed his briefcase on the counter. Mr. Berger has authorized me to inform you that he has resigned from Berger Architectural Designs, effective immediately. The company has been sold to our Japanese partners. He turned to Monica. Mrs. Berger, you'll find complete documentation of Mr. Berger's departure, including evidence necessitating these actions. He pulled out a folder containing photographs, hotel receipts, text messages. A decade of deception laid bare in clinical detail. "Oh God," Monica whispered. "Dad's gone?" Sarah's voice cracked. "I don't understand." "Mom?" Wesley moved toward his daughter, his biological daughter, but Monica's sharp glance stopped him. Richard continued methodically removing documents from his briefcase. "Mr. Berger has also instructed me to inform you that all joint accounts have been legally dissolved. Mrs. Berger's personal account has been frozen pending investigation of irregular transfers. Additionally," he turned to Wesley, "the IRS has been notified of certain discrepancies in Barnes Contracting's tax filings." "He can't do this," Wesley growled. "I assure you, Mr. Barnes, he can and has." Richard placed a business card on the counter. "My office will be handling all further communication. Good day." He left them standing in the kitchen, Sarah's bewildered questions filling the space between Monica's shocked silence and Wesley's growing rage. Outside, neighbors peered through windows, phones already buzzing with the first ripples of scandal. "Mom, please," Sarah begged. "What's happening?" Monica stared at the documents, years of carefully constructed lies crumbling around her. "Your father, he's gone," Wesley finished. "Clayton's gone?" The word echoed through the house, through their lives, through the community as news spread. Clayton Berger, respected architect and pillar of society, had vanished. In his wake, he left a devastated family, frozen accounts, and a trail of questions no one seemed able to answer. By evening, reporters gathered outside the house. Monica's phone buzzed constantly, friends, gallery clients, bank officials, all demanding explanations she couldn't give. Wesley paced the kitchen, making frantic calls to his accountant about the impending tax audit. Sarah sat in her room, staring at her phone. Her last text to Clayton, "Night, Dad. Love you," red heart, remained unanswered. Below it, a new message appeared. All accounts associated with Clayton Berger have been deactivated. In his now empty office downtown, Clayton's name was already being removed from the door. His computer had been wiped clean, his personal items shipped to addresses that didn't exist. The community center designs, his masterpiece project, sat abandoned on his former desk. Somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, a man with Clayton's face, but a different name on his passport, smiled politely at a flight attendant. Below him, the lights of his old life receded into darkness. In his briefcase, perfectly organized files documented every step of his disappearance. The first phase was complete. Back in the kitchen, Monica stared at her reflection in the window, watching reporters multiply on her lawn like vultures. Wesley's words from years ago echoed in her mind. This arrangement works for everyone. Now, as her perfect world collapsed around her, she realized Clayton had been working too. Not on his community center, but on ensuring their arrangement would work for no one but him. The gallery's lights seemed harsh, highlighting every crack in Monica's carefully maintained facade. 2 weeks had passed since Clayton's disappearance, and her world had shrunk to whispers and averted gazes. She stood before her latest exhibition, watching potential buyers drift away upon recognizing her. "Mrs. Berger," her assistant approached cautiously. "Mr. Rothschild called. He's withdrawing his collection from next month's showing." Monica nodded, numb to yet another defection. Her phone buzzed. Another message from her lawyer about Clayton's ironclad financial maneuvers. She discovered just how thoroughly he'd documented their deception, how methodically he'd prepared his escape. "Mom?" Sarah's voice drew her attention. Her daughter, their daughter, stood in the gallery entrance, looking lost in her own skin. "Can we talk?" They settled in Monica's office, the space between them heavy with unspoken truths. Sarah's sketchbook lay unopened in her lap, pages filled with darker themes than ever before. "Everyone at school is talking," Sarah said quietly. "They say Dad left because," she stopped, swallowing hard. "They say Uncle Wesley, that he and you." Monica reached for her daughter's hand, but Sarah pulled away. It's complicated, sweetheart. Stop lying to me. Sarah's voice cracked. Every time I look in the mirror now, I see Uncle Wesley's eyes staring back. How long have you been lying? Am I even? She couldn't finish the question. Before Monica could respond, her office door burst open. Wesley stumbled in, tie askew, eyes wild. They're auditing everything. Every contract, every invoice. Clayton didn't just alert them to recent files. He gave them records going back years. Lower your voice, Monica hissed, glancing toward the gallery. Lower my voice? My business is being torn apart. Karen's left me, took the kids to her mother's. Says she can't handle the scandal. Wesley raked his hands through his hair. Meanwhile, you're still playing gallery director like nothing's changed. Everything's changed. Monica stood, her own composure finally cracking. My clients are leaving, my reputation is ruined, and my daughter. Our daughter. Wesley shouted. Sarah's sketchbook clattered to the floor. Pages scattered, revealing dark swirls and broken figures. She fled the office, ignoring their calls. In the following days, Monica's carefully constructed life continued to unravel. The gallery's foot traffic dwindled to nothing. Her social circle evaporated. Even her yoga instructor declined to renew her sessions. Wesley moved in out of necessity. His wife had frozen their accounts, and the tax audit had paralyzed his business. They rattled around the big house like ghosts, their affair stripped of its excitement, laid bare in the harsh light of consequences. Sarah started therapy, recommended by her school counselor. She sat in Dr. Martinez's office, surrounded by soothing colors that did nothing to calm her inner turmoil. Tell me about your art, Dr. Martinez suggested during their first session. Sarah stared at her latest sketch, a butterfly trapped in a web of lies. I used to draw what I saw. Now I draw what I feel, and everything feels wrong. Wrong how? Like my whole life has been a lie. Like I'm not who I thought I was. Sarah touched her face, tracing features she now recognized as Wesley's. Mom and Wesley, they're trying to act like we're suddenly this new family. Like Dad never existed. And how do you feel about Clayton? Sarah's hands trembled. He left without saying goodbye, without telling me why. But then I think about all the lies, and maybe he wasn't really my dad anyway. Biology doesn't define family, Dr. Martinez said gently. Then what does? Lies? Secrets? Everyone telling me everything's fine when it's not. Sarah's voice rose. My mom's gallery is empty. Wesley drinks and yells about Dad ruining his life. And I'm supposed to just adjust? At home, Monica and Wesley's relationship deteriorated under the weight of consequences. Their passionate affair had become a grim coexistence. We could start over, Wesley suggested one night, drunk again. Move somewhere new. Be a real family. Monica laughed bitterly. A real family? We destroyed a real family, Wesley. We're just wreckage. At least I'm honest about who I am now, he slurred. No more pretending to be the helpful brother-in-law. No more watching another man raise my daughter. No, now you're the drunk who ruined his brother's life. Much better. Their arguments echoed through the house, each word another crack in Sarah's foundation. She spent more time at her art studio, pouring her pain onto canvas. Her work grew darker, more complex, drawing attention from galleries that quickly withdrew interest upon learning her name. One evening, Monica found Sarah in Clayton's old office, sitting at his empty desk. I got an A in biology, Sarah said without looking up. We learn about genetic traits. Blue eyes are recessive. 2 brown-eyed parents can't have a blue-eyed child. I think I always knew something wasn't right. I just didn't want to see it. Monica touched her daughter's shoulder. Sarah, don't. Sarah stood, shrugging off her mother's hand. I have homework. Later that night, Monica sat alone in her kitchen, scrolling through real estate listings. They couldn't afford the house much longer. Clayton had seen to that. Wesley's contracting business was effectively dead. Her gallery was failing, and their mutual funds had evaporated. She opened her laptop, thinking to check her email, and found herself staring at an old photo instead. Clayton, Sarah, and herself at a charity gala 2 years ago. They looked perfect, happy, complete. She clicked through more photos, seeing now what she'd missed before: the trust in Clayton's eyes, the loyalty she'd betrayed, the family she'd destroyed. In his temporary apartment across town, Wesley sat surrounded by audit papers, a half-empty bottle his only companion. His phone showed missed calls from his wife's lawyer, his accountant, his remaining employees. Clayton's revenge was thorough, precise, and perfectly calculated to dismantle every aspect of their lives. Sarah's art therapy session that week produced a triptych: 3 panels showing a family fracturing, secrets spilling like dark water, truth cutting like broken glass. Dr. Martinez studied the pieces carefully. "You're processing your pain through your art," she observed. "That's healthy." Sarah added another shadow to the central panel. "I'm not processing anything. I'm just surviving." 3 months after Clayton's disappearance, Sarah found herself studying her reflection in her bedroom mirror. She touched her face, tracing features she now recognized as Wesley's: the blue eyes, the set of her jaw. Other features came from Monica: the arch of her eyebrows, the shape of her mouth. She found herself searching for traces of Clayton, though she knew she'd find none. Her latest art piece sat unfinished on her easel, a complex exploration of identity and betrayal. Her teachers praised its maturity, not knowing it was born from her splintering reality. She'd thrown herself into her art with new intensity, finding solace in creation while her world crumbled. Downstairs, she could hear Monica and Wesley arguing again. Their voices carried through the house, bitter and sharp. "Can't keep living like this," Wesley was saying. "The audit's destroying everything." Clayton knew exactly what he was doing. "You think I don't know that?" Monica's voice cracked. "My gallery's failing. No one will work with me. Sarah barely speaks to me. Our daughter. She's our daughter, Monica. When are you going to stop acting like..." "Like what?" "Like my husband didn't disappear and leave us with nothing? Like you're not drinking away what little money we have left? Like our lives haven't completely fallen apart?" Sarah turned up her music, drowning out their voices. She focused on her painting, adding layers of complexity to the tangled relationships depicted on canvas. Her art teacher had mentioned a prestigious early admission program, a chance to graduate early, escape to art school, build a new life away from the wreckage of her family. Her phone buzzed. A text from her friend Emma. "News about your dad. Call me?" Sarah's heart raced as she dialed. "What news?" "My mom's friend works in real estate. She says someone matching your dad's description was seen in Singapore. Something about property investments." Sarah's hand trembled. "Are they sure?" "The description matched, but when people went to check, he was gone." "Sarah, are you okay?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable. Was she okay? Would she ever be okay again? Later that evening, Monica knocked on her door. "Sarah, can we talk?" Sarah continued painting, not turning around. "About what?" "I got a call from your art teacher. She mentioned an early graduation program. I'm applying." Sarah added another stroke to her canvas. "I need to get out of here." Monica stepped closer, studying the painting, a maze of broken mirrors and twisted reflections. "Your work, it's changed, grown deeper. Pain does that." Sarah finally turned. "Did you ever love him?" "Dad. Clayton, I mean." Monica sank onto Sarah's bed. "Yes, I did. I do. It's complicated." "Stop saying that." Sarah's brush clattered to the floor. "Everything's complicated with you. The affair was complicated. The lies were complicated. My whole life is complicated because you and Wesley couldn't." She stopped, breathing hard. Downstairs, they heard Wesley knock something over, followed by cursing. Monica closed her eyes briefly. "He's drinking again?" "He lost another appeal on his contracting license." Monica sounded tired. "The audit found irregularities going back years." "Clayton, your father. He was very thorough." Sarah picked up her brush, turning back to her painting. "He always was. Methodical. Precise. Perfect." She added a dark slash across the canvas. "Unlike his perfect wife and perfect brother." "Sarah, I have homework." The dismissal was clear. That night, Sarah lay awake, scrolling through old family photos on her phone. She paused on one from her 13th birthday, Clayton teaching her to use his expensive camera, both of them laughing. The memory felt sharp enough to cut. Her mom's voice drifted up from downstairs. Private investigator found nothing. It's like he's disappeared completely. Wesley's response was slurred. Clayton always was the smart one. Dad's favorite. Perfect Clayton, with his perfect life. Until we... Stop. Just stop. Sarah closed her eyes, willing sleep to come. Her phone buzzed one last time. An email notification from an anonymous account. Her heart stopped when she opened it. An application fee payment confirmation for the early graduation program. The sender's name was masked, but she knew. Somehow she knew. The next morning, Monica found another envelope in their mailbox. No return address, no markings, just her name in typed letters. Inside was a single photograph. Clayton at what appeared to be an Asian airport, dated 2 days ago. She studied his face, thinner, tanned, but unmistakably him. On the back, typed numbers matched dates and amounts from her secret account transfers over the years. He's taunting us, Wesley said when she showed him the photo. He was nursing another hangover, his hands shaking as he held the image. Showing us he can see us, but we can't find him. Monica placed the photo in her desk drawer, alongside the growing collection of similar messages. Each one a reminder of Clayton's invisible presence in their lives. He's not taunting Wesley. He's hunting. Methodically, patiently, exactly like he always did everything else. Upstairs, Sarah worked on her application essays, pouring her pain into carefully crafted words. Her art portfolio grew darker, richer, more complex. Teachers whispered about her talent, born from tragedy. Fellow students kept their distance, the scandal still too fresh, too fascinating. Wesley's phone rang, his lawyer again. The appeal on his contracting license had been denied permanently. As he listened to the legal explanations, his eyes fixed on the bottle on Monica's kitchen counter. 10 years of secret meetings in hotel rooms had devolved into this. Living in his brother's house, drinking away his days, watching his daughter avoid his gaze. We could try another appeal, his lawyer was saying. With what money? Wesley laughed bitterly. Clayton made sure we won't have that kind of resources again. Later that week, Sarah sat in Dr. Martinez's office, describing her latest artwork. It's about perception, she explained. How we see ourselves versus how others see us versus what's actually true. If there even is a truth anymore. And how do you see yourself now? Dr. Martinez asked. Sarah stared out the window. As a collage. Pieces of Monica, pieces of Wesley, pieces of the life I thought I had with Clayton. None of them fit together anymore, but they're all still there. That evening, Monica found Wesley in Clayton's old office, surrounded by empty bottles. We need to talk about Sarah, she said. About her graduating early. Running away, you mean? Wesley didn't look up. Can't blame her. We destroyed everything she believed in. We did what we... Don't. Wesley finally met her eyes. Don't say it was complicated. Don't say we had our reasons. We were selfish, Monica. We wanted what we wanted and didn't care who we hurt. And now, he gestured at the empty office, the scattered bottles, their broken lives. Now we get to live with it. Sarah listened from the hallway, her heart aching. She returned to her room, to her canvas, to the only truth she could still trust, her art. As she painted, she thought about Clayton, wondering if he could see them now. Would he feel satisfied, knowing how thoroughly they'd unraveled? Or was this just the beginning? Monica spent that night sorting through gallery correspondence. More cancellations, more polite rejections. Their money was running out. The house would have to be sold soon. Wesley's drinking consumed what little income they had left. She looked at her reflection in her darkened laptop screen, barely recognizing the woman she'd become. In the garden, the greenhouse where Clayton had overheard their betrayal stood empty, its glass panels reflecting the moonlight. Sarah sometimes sat there, sketching, trying to capture the moment when their perfect lie had finally shattered. Her latest piece hung in her room, a triptych showing the greenhouse from 3 perspectives, before the revelation, during the fatal conversation, and after Clayton's disappearance. Each panel darker than the last. Each truth more painful than the one before. Wesley stared at the painting when he passed her room. You've captured it perfectly, he said, his voice rough. The moment everything fell apart. Sarah didn't respond, just added another layer of shadow to her canvas. In the growing darkness of her art, she found a strange kind of light, the truth finally unveiled in all its painful clarity. The month ended with another anonymous envelope. This time, a simple bank statement showing a scholarship fund established in Sarah's name. No trace of the donor, no way to track the source. Just another reminder that Clayton was out there, watching, waiting, his revenge unfolding with the same precision he'd once applied to his architectural designs. Sarah pinned the statement to her wall, next to her early graduation application. In her latest painting, a figure faced away from the viewer, standing in an airport, his shadow stretching backward toward a shattered home. She titled it Evolution, the moment when everything they'd been evolved into everything they'd become. Monica and Wesley's relationship, once passionate enough to risk everything for, had devolved into bitter coexistence. They stayed together because they had nowhere else to go, their shared guilt the only thing they still had in common. Clayton had ensured their affair would become their prison, their deception its own punishment. As autumn approached, Sarah worked late into the night on her portfolio. Her art teacher had called it transformative, praising the depth of emotion in every piece. Only Sarah knew the true source of that emotion, the pain of betrayal, the weight of lies, the strange gratitude toward the man who had exposed it all. The perfect lie had evolved into the perfect punishment. Each day brought new consequences, new revelations, new reminders of what they'd lost. Clayton's revenge wasn't just in the taking of their money or the destruction of their reputations. It was in forcing them to live with the truth they'd so carefully hidden, to see themselves as clearly as he had seen them that evening in the garden. Sarah's final painting of the season showed a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis made of broken mirrors. She titled it Metamorphosis, a testament to their evolution from the people they pretended to be to the people they'd become. The perfect lie had transformed them all, and Clayton, even in his absence, conducted their evolution like a master architect, designing their destruction with the same precision he'd once used to build their life. The man who had once been Clayton Berger studied his reflection in his hotel mirror, adjusting his tie with the same precision he'd once applied to architectural drawings. 2 years had transformed him, his hair styled differently, his frame leaner, his eyes holding new depths. Even his accent had shifted, acquired hints of his time in Asia. He opened his laptop, reviewing the intelligence his private investigators had gathered. Monica and Wesley's attempts to rebuild their lives played out in a series of photographs and reports. Their new apartment, modest compared to the house they'd lost. Monica's small gallery venture in a less prestigious part of town. Wesley's frustrated attempts to restart his career under a different business name. The art community had gathered for the exhibition's closing, witnessing the final act of Clayton's calculated revenge. Critics praised Sarah's work, noting how it captured the complexity of truth and deception. Among them, whispers spread about the real story behind the paintings, the family drama that had inspired such powerful art. Your flight to Paris leaves next week? Clayton asked as they walked through the gallery one last time. Sarah nodded, pausing before a portrait of a fractured family. Will you come visit? Whenever you want. Clayton's voice softened. On your terms, your timeline. Wesley appeared at the gallery entrance, looking haggard. Security moved to stop him, but Clayton raised his hand. Let him say goodbye. Wesley stumbled slightly as he walked toward them. Sarah, please. You can't just leave. I can, she replied calmly. I'm your father. No, Sarah cut him off. You're my biological parent. There's a difference. She glanced at Clayton. I've learned that DNA isn't what makes a father. Monica watched from the doorway as Wesley's face crumpled. The community that had once embraced them now turned away, Clayton's revelations having exposed every attempt they'd made to rebuild their lives on fresh lies. The Paris scholarship, Monica said quietly. All this time, it was you, Clayton. Sarah's talent earned her the spot, he replied. I just made sure she had the opportunity to be seen. The gallery owner approached with final paperwork. Sales had exceeded expectations. Sarah's truth had resonated with collectors who recognized authentic pain transformed into art. Clayton watched as Sarah signed the documents, her hand steady. She had grown stronger through this, finding her voice in the midst of chaos. His revenge hadn't just been about destroying Monica and Wesley's deceptions. It had been about giving Sarah the space to discover her own truth. "The movers will pack your studio next week," he said. "Everything will be shipped to Paris ahead of you." Wesley made one last attempt. "Sarah, we can fix this. Your mother and I." "There's nothing to fix," Sarah interrupted. "You and Mom broke something irreparable years ago. Every lie since then has just been trying to hide the cracks." She turned to Clayton. "But sometimes broken things become art. Sometimes the truth, however painful, sets us free." The community had watched the drama unfold over 2 years. Clayton's disappearance, Monica and Wesley's fall from grace, and now this final act. His revenge hadn't required violence or direct action. He had simply exposed their lies and let truth do its work. Monica's gallery remained locked, her reputation in the art world destroyed. Wesley's contracting license was permanently revoked, his attempts at rebuilding his business thwarted at every turn. They had lost everything: social standing, financial security, and most importantly, their daughter's trust. But Clayton had gained something unexpected. Not just revenge, but redemption. In supporting Sarah's art, in watching her transform pain into beauty, he had found a way to rebuild what mattered most: the relationship with the daughter who, despite biology, was truly his. "Ready?" he asked Sarah as the gallery lights dimmed for the last time. She looked at her parents. Monica trying to maintain composure, Wesley broken by revelations, then turned to Clayton. "Yes, I'm ready for truth now." They walked out together, leaving Monica and Wesley in the emptying gallery, surrounded by paintings that told the story of their destruction. Clayton's revenge was complete, not through violence or direct action, but through the simple, devastating power of truth exposed. The community that had once whispered about Clayton's disappearance now nodded in understanding. His calculated revenge had revealed not just Monica and Wesley's betrayal, but the strength of the bond between a father and daughter. A bond formed not by blood, but by love and choice. As they left the gallery, Sarah looked up at Clayton. "Truth really does write its own endings, doesn't it?" Clayton smiled, genuine warmth replacing the cold precision of revenge. "No, Sarah, you wrote this ending. Through your art, your strength, your choices. I just made sure everyone could read it clearly." Behind them, Monica and Wesley stood in the empty gallery, their attempted fresh start shattered like the mirrors in Sarah's paintings. They had lost everything: each other, their daughter, their future, while Clayton had found something more valuable than revenge: honesty, redemption, and the unshakable bond with the daughter who had chosen him, just as he had chosen her Dedemar. "Yamamoto?" A knock at his door. "Your car is ready." "Thank you." His voice carried the slight lilt he'd cultivated during his time abroad. James Yamamoto, his new identity crafted as carefully as any building he'd ever designed. The car wound through familiar streets that felt strange now. He'd chosen his timing carefully. Sarah's first major exhibition opened in 3 days at the Hamilton Gallery, the same gallery that had rejected Monica's application 6 times in the past year. His phone buzzed with an update from his team. Monica and Wesley had just signed a lease on a small event space, planning their modest wedding. The irony almost made him smile. They destroyed his marriage to be together, and now they were trying to build something legitimate from the ashes of their affair. At the Hamilton Gallery, preparations for Sarah's exhibition were underway. Through the windows, he watched his daughter. No, not his daughter, but the child he'd raised and loved, directing the placement of her pieces. Her work had evolved, grown deeper, more complex. Pain, it seemed, had been an excellent teacher. "The prodigy returns," a voice beside him said. Clayton turned to find Michael Chun, his former business partner, studying him with careful eyes. "Hello, Michael. I almost didn't recognize you." Michael glanced at the gallery. "She's talented. Gets better every year. You've kept in touch?" "Someone had to." Michael's voice held an edge. "After you disappeared, after I discovered my wife and brother's decade-long betrayal," Clayton corrected quietly. Michael nodded slowly. "Your revenge was thorough. It's not finished, Inside the gallery, Sarah stepped back from a large canvas, a complex piece showing fractured reflections of family photographs. Clayton had followed her progress through art school, anonymously funding her education while watching her turn their family's destruction into haunting beauty. His phone buzzed again. Monica's latest gallery venture had just lost its primary investor. Right on schedule. Wesley's attempt to register a new contracting business under his cousin's name had been flagged for investigation. The pieces were falling into place. Will you tell her? Michael asked, nodding towards Sarah. About the funding? The anonymous support? Clayton straightened his tie. She'll know soon enough. He'd timed everything precisely. The exhibition would open on the anniversary of his discovery in the garden. Monica and Wesley would attend, playing the supportive parents, never suspecting that their careful attempts at rebuilding were about to crumble again. Later that evening, Clayton sat in his hotel room, reviewing his final preparations. On his laptop screen, surveillance footage showed Monica and Wesley arguing in their apartment. Their relationship had grown brittle under the strain of poverty and public shame. His revenge had stripped away their passion, leaving only mutual blame and resentment. The invitation to Paris arrived, he asked during his nightly call with his team. Delivered this morning. Sarah was ecstatic. And the other arrangements? All in place. The gallery owner will announce the scholarship at the opening. Clayton ended the call, turning to the window. Below, the city sparkled, unaware of the drama about to unfold. He'd spent 2 years crafting this moment, ensuring every detail would align perfectly. Monica and Wesley thought they'd weathered the worst of his revenge. They had no idea he was just getting started. His phone chimed, another update. Wesley had tried to contact his ex-wife again, begging for reconciliation. Monica had discovered the attempt and stormed out of their apartment. Such predictable patterns. Such exploitable weaknesses. The exhibition catalog lay open on his desk, Sarah's artist statement catching the light. In exploring themes of identity and betrayal, I seek to understand how truth shapes us, even when that truth shatters everything we thought we knew. Clayton traced the words with his finger. She'd grown so much, transformed her pain into art that spoke to universal truths. He'd made sure her talent found recognition, even as he systematically destroyed the lives of those who had betrayed him. A message from the gallery owner appeared on his phone. Final preparations complete. Security arrangements as requested. Everything was ready. In 3 days, he would step out of the shadows, reveal himself to the world he'd left behind. But first, he had some final pieces to move into position. He opened his laptop again, initiating the last phase of his plan. Emails began flying. Evidence of Monica's new indiscretions. Proof of Wesley's desperate attempts to hide his continued failures. Documents that would ensure their attempted fresh start would collapse spectacularly. Outside his window, a light rain began to fall. Clayton watched the drops trace patterns on the glass, remembering another rainy night 2 years ago when he discovered their betrayal. So much had changed since then. He had changed. His phone buzzed one final time that night, a message from Sarah to her anonymous benefactor. Thank you for believing in my art. I wish I knew who you were. Soon, Clayton whispered to the empty room. Very soon, the Hamilton Gallery hummed with opening night energy. Sarah's exhibition, Reflections on Deception, had drawn an impressive crowd. Art critics mingled with collectors, their murmured conversations punctuated by genuine appreciation for the young artist's work. Monica and Wesley arrived together, their attempt at presenting a united front betrayed by the tension in their postures. Monica wore a dress she couldn't really afford, Wesley a suit that hadn't seen a tailor in 2 years. Their decline from social prominence to cautious rehabilitation was evident in every careful gesture. Sarah, Monica called, spotting her daughter near the central installation. Everything looks amazing. Sarah accepted her mother's hug with measured warmth. Thanks for coming. She nodded to Wesley. Both of you. The gallery owner approached, champagne in hand. Sarah, darling, you must meet the Hendersons. They're absolutely captivated by your triptych. As Sarah moved away, Monica and Wesley drifted through the crowd, acutely aware of the whispers that followed them. Their story had become local legend, the affair, the betrayal, the spectacular revenge that had stripped them of everything. "Need a drink," Wesley muttered, heading for the bar. Monica wandered alone, studying Sarah's paintings. Each piece spoke of betrayal, of fractured truths, of families splintered by secrets. She paused before a particularly striking canvas. A man turned away, his reflection showing multiple faces. "Remarkable talent," a voice said beside her. She learned to see truth clearly. Monica froze. The accent was different, the tone altered, but she would know that voice anywhere. Slowly she turned. The man beside her was both familiar and strange. Clayton, but not Clayton. Transformed by time and distance, but unmistakably him. "Hello, Monica." She grabbed the nearest wall for support. "Clayton?" Across the room, Wesley dropped his glass. The crash drew eyes, including Sarah's. She stared at the man beside her mother, recognition dawning slowly on her face. "Dad?" Clayton moved through the suddenly silent gallery with measured steps. 2 years of planning crystallized in this moment. He stopped before Sarah, noting how she'd grown, how her art had matured. "Your work is extraordinary," he said softly. Sarah's hand trembled as she reached out, touching his sleeve as if to verify he was real. You're him, the anonymous donor, the support all these years." "Sarah," Monica stepped forward. "Sarah, please." "Please what, Monica?" Clayton's voice carried across the hushed gallery. "Please don't tell her how her mother and uncle betrayed her father. Please don't mention the decade of lies." Wesley pushed through the crowd. "You son of a bitch. You think you could just walk back in here?" "Actually," Clayton removed an envelope from his jacket. "I can. Especially since I own this gallery now." Monica's face went pale. "What?" "Along with the building where your new gallery was going to open." Clayton's smile held no warmth. "And the company your cousin was going to use to restart Wesley's contracting business. I've been busy these past 2 years." Sarah moved between them. "Stop it. All of you." "Sarah." Wesley reached for her arm. "We can explain." "Explain?" Clayton's voice turned hard. "Like you explained your relationship with Karen last month? Trying to reconcile with your ex-wife while planning a wedding with Monica." Monica whirled on Wesley. "What? Or should we discuss Monica's recent indiscretions?" Clayton continued. "The young artist she's been mentoring quite personally?" The gallery crowd murmured, phones appearing to capture the unfolding drama. Sarah backed away from all of them, her face a mask of pain and revelation. "You knew?" she asked Clayton. "All this time, you knew where we were?" "I never left," Clayton said quietly. "I just stepped back to watch the truth do its work." A security guard appeared at his side as planned. "Sir?" "The documents you requested." Clayton took the folder, removing photographs and papers. Evidence of Monica and Wesley's continued deceptions, to each other, to the world, to themselves. He laid them out on a nearby table like pieces of a forensic investigation. "Every lie," he said calmly. "Every betrayal. Every attempt to rebuild your lives on fresh deceptions. All documented. All preserved." Monica's carefully maintained composure cracked. "Why? You've already destroyed us. What more do you want?" "Justice," Clayton replied. "Truth." The same things Sarah explores in her art. The gallery owner stepped forward, reading the room's tension. "Perhaps we should." "No," Sarah's voice cut through the chaos. "No more hiding. No more lies." She turned to Clayton. "You've been watching us? Supporting my art while destroying their lives?" "Supporting truth," Clayton corrected. "Your truth, expressed through art. Their truth, exposed through consequences." Wesley lunged forward suddenly, rage overcoming caution. Security intercepted him smoothly, professionally. Everything proceeding according to Clayton's careful choreography. "Sarah," Monica pleaded, "you have to understand." "I understand everything now." Sarah's voice shook. "The anonymous support, the Paris scholarship, the gallery connection. It was all you, wasn't it?" Clayton nodded. "You deserve the chance to develop your talent, to tell your story through your art." "While you wrote the ending," Sarah whispered. The gallery had become a theater, the audience silent as the family drama reached its climax. Monica's young artist lover slipped quietly toward the exit. Wesley's ex-wife Karen, invited anonymously by Clayton, watched from the corner with undisguised satisfaction. "The truth writes its own endings," Clayton said, gathering the damning documents. "I just made sure everyone could read them clearly." Security began quietly escorting the stunned guests toward the exits. This part of the evening was for family only, the final act of a play 2 years in the making. Sarah stood before her central piece, a massive canvas showing a family photo being slowly erased, truth bleeding through the fading lies. She looked between her parents, the weight of revelation heavy in her eyes. "All this time," she said softly, "I painted what I felt. But I never knew I had an audience who understood exactly what I was trying to say." Clayton moved to stand beside her, studying the painting. "You said it perfectly. Through every piece, every brush stroke." Monica and Wesley remained frozen, their carefully reconstructed world crumbling around them once again. The truth Clayton had unleashed would destroy their wedding plans, their fresh start, their attempts to rewrite their story. The gallery lights dimmed slightly, a prearranged signal. Time for the final revelations, the last pieces of Clayton's calculated revenge falling into place like the tumblers of a lock. Morning light filtered through the gallery windows, illuminating the aftermath of the previous night's revelations. Sarah sat alone before her paintings, her world rearranged yet again, but somehow clearer now. Footsteps approached. Clayton, carrying 2 coffee cups. "I remember you take it with honey instead of sugar." Sarah accepted the cup, studying him over its rim. "You remembered a lot of things. Watched a lot of moments. Every important one." Clayton settled beside her. "Your first gallery show, your early graduation, every step of your journey, while systematically destroying their lives, while letting truth destroy the lies they'd built." Clayton sipped his coffee. "There's a difference." Across town, Monica stood in their half-packed apartment. The wedding venue had canceled. Clayton's ownership of the building had come with termination clauses she hadn't bothered to read. Her new gallery space, her fresh start, all evaporated like morning mist. Wesley was gone, fled to Karen's house in a desperate attempt to salvage something from the wreckage of his life. But Karen, forewarned by Clayton, had changed the locks and filed a restraining order. "You have to admire the thoroughness," Monica's lawyer said over the phone. "Every contract, every agreement, every plan you've made." He found ways to dismantle them all. Back at the gallery, Sarah led Clayton through her exhibition. "This one," she paused before a particularly complex piece, "is about the moment I realized who I was. And wasn't. The genetic truth didn't change who you are," Clayton said quietly. "Didn't it? Biology isn't destiny, Sarah. We're shaped by choices, not chromosomes." A messenger arrived with an envelope, the formal offer from the Paris Art Academy. Sarah opened it with trembling fingers. "A full scholarship," she whispered. "You earned it," Clayton said. "Your talent did that, not my influence. But you made sure they saw my work. I opened doors. You walked through them on your own merit." The gallery owner approached with paperwork, sales from the opening. Despite, or perhaps because of the drama, Sarah's work had resonated deeply. Collectors recognized the truth in her paintings, the authentic pain and revelation captured in each piece. "Paris," Sarah said softly. "A fresh start. If you want it." Clayton watched her carefully. "The choice is yours." Across the city, Wesley sat in a bar, his contracting license permanently revoked. Clayton's evidence of tax fraud and business irregularities had been too thorough, too detailed to fight. Monica arrived at her gallery space one last time, finding the locks changed and a notice of termination posted. Her young artist lover had already accepted a position at a gallery in Seattle, leaving only a brief text goodbye. Clayton's revenge had been precise, calculated, and complete, not through violence or direct action, but through the simple exposure of truth. Every lie they'd told, every deception they'd crafted, had become a weapon in his hands. Sarah stood before her final piece, a phoenix rising from shattered mirrors. "I think I understand now," she said. "Why you did it this way. Why you waited. Do you? You wanted me to find my voice first. To be strong enough for the truth. Clayton nodded slowly. Truth without strength to bear it is just another kind of pain. The gallery began filling with workers, preparing to take down the exhibition. Sarah's pieces would be carefully packed, some for collectors, others for Paris. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you choose," Clayton replied. "Paris. Art. Truth. Your own path. And them? They chose their path long ago. Every lie, every betrayal, was a choice." Monica appeared at the gallery entrance, hesitating. Security moved to intercept her, but Sarah held up her hand. "Let her in." Monica walked slowly through the gallery, her designer clothes from last night replaced by simple jeans and a sweater. The transformation from society artist to disgraced curator was complete. "Sarah," she began. "I'm going to Paris." Sarah cut her off. "I've accepted the scholarship." Monica's eyes filled with tears. "I know I don't deserve to ask anything, but—" "No," Sarah said quietly. "You don't." Clayton watched the exchange silently. Seeing the strength in Sarah he'd helped nurture from afar. She was no longer the confused teenager he'd left behind, but a young woman who had transformed pain into art, betrayal into truth. The art community had gathered for the exhibition's closing, witnessing the final act of Clayton's calculated revenge. Critics praised Sarah's work, noting how it captured the complexity of truth and deception. Among them, whispers spread about the real story behind the paintings, the family drama that had inspired such powerful art. Sarah's art would travel to Paris, but it wasn't just an escape, it was a triumph. She had taken the shattered pieces of her family's deception and created something beautiful, something true. Clayton's revenge was complete. Not in the destruction of Monica and Wesley's lives, but in the preservation of what mattered most. His bond with Sarah, built not on blood, but on choice, on truth, on love that survived betrayal. Epilogue. 5 years after the exhibition that changed everything, Sarah Berger stood in Paris's prestigious Gallery Lumière, watching as her latest collection, Perfect Deceptions, was unveiled. The series of interconnected pieces told her family's story through metaphor and memory. Each canvas a chapter in their shared history of truth and lies. Clayton moved through the crowd with quiet pride, his transformation from vengeful architect to supportive father complete. The years in Asia had changed him permanently, his bearing more relaxed, his smile easier, though his eyes retained their methodical attention to detail. He'd built a successful international consulting firm, designing sustainable communities across Southeast Asia while maintaining his careful watch over those who had betrayed him. "The composition is extraordinary," a French critic remarked, studying a triptych that dominated the gallery's central wall. "The way you've captured familial deception, it's both universal and painfully personal." Sarah nodded, touching the delicate gold pendant Clayton had given her on her graduation from the Paris Art Academy. "Truth has its own beauty," she replied in perfect French, "even when it hurts." The pendant was a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis made of broken mirrors, a physical embodiment of the transformation she'd undergone. At 20, she'd become one of Paris's most promising young artists, her work sought after by collectors who recognized the depth of emotion behind each piece. Across the Atlantic, in a small apartment on the outskirts of their old city, Monica Castillo lived a diminished version of her former life. Her attempted revival in the art world had failed repeatedly, Clayton's influence ensuring that each new venture collapsed before it could take root. She taught basic art appreciation at a community center, her classes half empty, her name still carrying the taint of scandal. The young artist who had once been her lover had achieved moderate success in Seattle, but he never acknowledged their connection. Monica's reputation had become toxic. Anyone associated with her found their careers mysteriously stalled, their opportunities evaporating like morning dew. Wesley Barnes had fared even worse. After his contracting license was permanently revoked, he'd cycled through a series of increasingly menial jobs. His drinking had worsened until a drunk driving incident landed him in mandatory rehabilitation. Karen, his ex-wife, had remarried and moved to California with their children. The courts had granted her full custody, citing Wesley's instability and financial troubles. He lived now in a small room above a hardware store, working as a handyman for cash under the table. Every attempt to rebuild his life had been methodically dismantled by Clayton's invisible hand. Bank loans were denied. Business partnerships dissolved before they could begin. Even rental applications mysteriously fell through. Your mother sent another letter, Clayton mentioned quietly as he and Sarah studied her centerpiece. A massive canvas showing a family photograph being consumed by truth, the paint itself seeming to bleed reality through the perfect lie. Sarah's hand tightened on her wine glass. And the usual. Asking for help, claiming she's changed. Wanting to be part of your success. Clayton paused. She's working at an art supply store now. Wesley's been in and out of rehab again. Good. Sarah's voice held no satisfaction, only acceptance. Their choices had consequences. Just like yours did. Just like mine have. The consequences of Clayton's revenge had rippled through their community for years. Monica and Wesley's wedding had never happened. Their relationship had crumbled under the weight of poverty and mutual blame. They tried to stay together briefly, united by their shared fall from grace, but even that had failed. Monica had attempted to write a memoir, hoping to profit from the scandal, but publishing houses mysteriously lost interest after receiving certain documents about her ongoing deceptions. Wesley had tried to reconcile with Karen, only to find she'd been thoroughly warned about his desperate attempts to reclaim his old life. Mrs. Patterson would have appreciated this, Sarah said, indicating a smaller piece that showed their old neighbor's house, where the first cracks in their perfect lie had appeared. The elderly woman had passed away 2 years after Clayton's revenge began, but she'd lived long enough to see the truth she'd tried to reveal finally come to light. Clayton's business partners had prospered under the Japanese acquisition, the community center project completed by others. Michelchin had maintained loose contact, one of the few who understood the full scope of Clayton's calculated response to betrayal. The exhibition catalog included a foreword by a prominent art historian. In Perfect Deceptions, Sarah Berger explores the archaeology of truth, how lies build upon lies until truth becomes an act of excavation. Her technique mirrors her subject matter. Layers of paint revealing and concealing, just as family secrets emerge through time's patient erosion. Guests at the opening included collectors from across Europe, but notably absent were Monica and Wesley. They'd received invitations, Clayton's final twist of the knife, but their responses had gone unanswered. Their presence remained only in the art they'd inspired. Their betrayal transformed into beauty by the daughter they'd lost. The Americans are calling it a triumph, the gallery owner said, approaching with a stack of reviews. They want to know if you'll consider a showing in New York. Sarah glanced at Clayton, who smiled. Your choice, he said softly. Always your choice. Choice had become their watchword, their way of acknowledging that blood meant less than loyalty, that truth meant more than genetics. Clayton had chosen to raise Sarah as his own, chosen to protect her even as he destroyed those who had betrayed them, chosen to support her journey into art even as he methodically dismantled her biological parents' lives. In their old community, Monica and Wesley had become cautionary tales. Their names were whispered at dinner parties, their story a modern parable about the price of betrayal. Monica's gallery space had been converted into a trendy restaurant, her artistic legacy reduced to teaching basic color theory to retirees. Wesley did odd jobs for people who'd once hired him as a contractor, the irony of his fall lost on no one. Sarah's art told their story, but not as they would have written it. Her paintings captured the complexity of betrayal, the way truth could heal even as it destroyed. Critics noted the technical brilliance, but what drew viewers was the emotional authenticity, the raw honesty of a daughter grappling with the lies that had shaped her life. I have something for you, Clayton said as the evening wound down. He handed Sarah an envelope containing recent photographs. Monica leaving her small apartment for her shift at the art supply store. Wesley sitting alone in a diner, both of them aged beyond their years by consequence and regret. Still watching, Sarah observed. Always. Clayton's voice held no anger now, only certainty. Some truths need maintenance. The exhibition would travel to London next, then Berlin. each showing adding to Sarah's reputation as an artist who transformed personal pain into universal truth. Her success was her own, earned through talent and hard work. But Clayton had ensured her path remained clear of the obstacles Monica and Wesley repeatedly tried to place. They both attempted to contact galleries showing Sarah's work, offering interviews about the real story behind the paintings. Each time, Clayton's quiet influence had closed doors, redirected opportunities, protected the truth Sarah had chosen to tell through her art. "Do you ever regret it?" Sarah asked as they left the gallery, Paris glittering around them. "Not the revenge, but letting me know the truth? Letting me choose." Clayton considered this as they walked along the Seine. Truth without choice isn't truth. It's just another kind of lie. You needed both to become who you are. Who she was had become increasingly clear. An artist of international reputation. A young woman who had transformed betrayal into beauty. A daughter who had chosen her father just as he had chosen her. Her work hung in galleries across Europe, each piece a chapter in their story of truth's triumph over perfect lies. Back in their old city, Monica closed another empty gallery exhibition, her small showing of student work from her community center classes. She tried to leverage Sarah's success, mentioning their connection, but Clayton's influence had ensured her claims brought only embarrassment. Wesley watched his son's college graduation through social media posts, his attempts to reconnect with his children thwarted by restraining orders and his own inability to maintain sobriety. Every job application, every apartment viewing, every attempt to rebuild ended in mysterious rejection. The community that had once embraced them now treated them as object lessons. Their story was discussed in whispered tones. How Clayton's methodical revenge had exposed every lie, how truth had proven more devastating than any act of violence, how karma had worn a patient smile and executed its justice with architectural precision. Sarah's Perfect Deceptions exhibition would eventually be recognized as a defining moment in contemporary art, not just for its technical brilliance, but for its unflinching examination of truth, betrayal, and redemption. Critics would note how each piece seemed to reveal new layers with each viewing, just as Clayton's revenge had unfolded in careful, deliberate stages. As father and daughter walked along the Seine, their conversation turned to future projects. Sarah had begun sketching ideas for a new series, while Clayton's consulting firm had expanded into environmental sustainability. They had built something new from the ashes of betrayal, a relationship founded on choice rather than obligation, on truth rather than pretense. Monica and Wesley remained trapped in the consequences of their choices, their perfect lie transformed into perfect justice. They lived as shadows of their former selves, watching from a distance as Sarah's star rose and Clayton's success grew, understanding too late that their betrayal had cost them not just their social standing or financial security, but the love of a daughter who had chosen truth over biology. The exhibition catalog ended with Sarah's artist statement: "Perfect deceptions shatter perfectly. Truth remains sharp-edged and clean, ready to be transformed into something beautiful." This collection honors that transformation, from lie to truth, from betrayal to justice, from perfect pretense to perfect understanding. Clayton's revenge had been complete, but his triumph lay not in the destruction of Monica and Wesley's lives, but in the relationship he'd built with Sarah. Together, they had transformed a story of betrayal into one of redemption, proving that the strongest bonds are not forged by blood, but by choice, truth, and love that survives even the most perfect deceptions. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.